In the late afternoon, vintage steam locomotive AB 663 hisses steam as it is fired up, cleaned and fuelled, ready for a trip in the morning. This will be the last time this locomotive will haul the annual Midland Mountaineer excursion from Christchurch to Greymouth before it returns to its home base in Wellington. After rising early, passengers begin gathering at the Christchurch station for a return journey to Lyttelton, a short prelude to the main excursion. At Lyttelton, we park beside the disused station, where commuters and inter-island ferry passengers once congregated, both now only distant memories. Our class of locomotive was once the mainstay of this line, and with our engine AB 663 having been based in both Christchurch and Greymouth, it's a living link with the region's past. We're on our way, and the train is about to enter New Zealand's first railway tunnel, built in 1867 to link Christchurch with its port. This is the eastern end of the line that links to the west coast and marks the beginning of our westward adventure. As the train blasts out of the tunnel at Heathcote, the smoke-belching locomotive is a vivid reminder of days gone by for some of the passengers lined up for the first of many photo opportunities during the weekend. After picking up the remainder of the weekend's passengers during a brief stop at the Christchurch station, the train heads the few kilometres south to Rolleston before turning west onto the Midland Line. Our journey from coast to coast starts at Christchurch in New Zealand's South Island, crosses a wide plain and wends its way through steep mountain valleys before reaching the river port of Greymouth. We're now onto the broad Canterbury Plains, and we'll soon be climbing up mountain valleys to reach the summit of the line at Arthur's Pass. This trip was first made possible in 1923 with the opening of the Otira Tunnel, and is now considered one of the great train journeys of the world. With steam locomotive servicing facilities long since gone, water has to be pumped from a stream near the Springfield station to replenish the tender and tank wagon before the long climb to Arthur's Pass. Splendid views of snow-covered mountains create an enduring scene and serve as a backdrop for passengers' photos. As the train begins to thread its way up the Waimakariri River Valley, the mountains close in, and we begin piercing through a series of tunnels, crossing deep ravines and high steel viaducts, and entering narrow, steep-sided gullies. Leaving the tunnels and viaducts behind, we climb the steep Avoca bank before the way ahead opens out into a broad alpine plateau. It's little wonder that ever since the line was opened, passenger trains through this rugged mountain region have coined the name Transalpine. Once wagons loaded with stock and wool left from Craigieburn, where we are now waiting for a coal train from Ngakawau to pass. The excursion will pass many coal trains during the weekend, each hauling nearly 2,000 tonnes of black West Coast real estate to Lyttelton for shipping overseas. Temperatures plummet as the weather deteriorates in this inhospitable terrain, allowing us to see a different perspective to the majesty of the mountains rising high above us. Cass Station, flashing past on the left, has been a railway maintenance base since the opening of the line and still remains to ensure that the railway keeps operating in this harsh environment. The line rejoins the Waimakariri River again near Mount White after a deviation during the last few kilometres of our journey. Nearing Cora Lynn, the grade begins to steepen as the train commences its final climb to the highest point of the line at Arthur's Pass. In the cab, we can recall the drama of the age of steam, as the driver guides the train skillfully during the final slog up to Arthur's Pass. This engine was originally coal-fired, but was converted to oil burning during its restoration in the mid-1990s, much to the relief of its farmer. We arrive at Arthur's Pass and will soon be descending through the 8-kilometre-long Otira Tunnel to the west coast. This tunnel through the main divide, completed in 1923, was bored under thousands of feet of solid rock and a small lake. It was the longest in the southern hemisphere at the time and slopes downhill towards Otira at a grade of 1 in 33. Electric locomotives were used through the tunnel up until the late 1990s to haul passenger and freight trains. For safety reasons, diesel locomotives will now be placed at the front of the train, and the steam engine will have its fire put out. Shunting manoeuvres are required to place our tank wagon between the diesel and steam locomotives, allowing time for passengers to breathe the fresh mountain air and get photos at the highest railway station in the South Island. We're now descending through the Otira Tunnel and will soon reach the old railway town of Otira, once the depot for the electric locomotives. The steam engine's fire is restarted, the diesel locomotives removed, and the tank wagon placed back behind the steam engine in readiness for us to continue our journey. Before we leave, the engine gets another drop of water, a bit of grease and oil for the bearings, and the passengers can once again stretch their legs before the train begins its dramatic run down the Otira Gorge. Another of the many daily coal trains is waiting for us at Aikens as we race past its 2 diesel locomotives and 24 wagons. The diesel engines that brought us down the Otira Tunnel will be placed onto the front of this coal train to assist it up through the steep tunnel. The valley begins to widen as we reach the Taramacau River, which is coloured light blue by the melting snows from high up in the Southern Alps. We're about to pass by the historic Jackson's Tavern that was originally built in 1870 as a horse stable for a stagecoach service to Arthur's Pass that operated before the opening of the railway. Darkness closes in on the train as it races downward towards the river port of Greymouth. The passengers will stay overnight in a hotel near the railway station and rejoin the train for the return journey early tomorrow morning. Passengers gather early at the historic Greymouth railway station, now lacking its once large railway yard, as they wait for the arrival of the train from the depot. Continuing with its normal Sunday morning existence, Greymouth appears unperturbed by the presence of a steam locomotive that saw out its last days of service with the New Zealand Railways in this area during the 1960s. AB 663 finally draws slowly into the station, trailing its carriages just as it has done so many times in the past. Passengers line up with military precision to capture photos of the train blasting out of the short Brunner Tunnel near the railway junction town of Stillwater. Photo labs around the country are sure to be busy at the completion of this excursion. After racing by the passengers and pulling up some distance ahead, the train slowly backs up to allow them to climb aboard in the narrow strip of the ballast beside the tracks. We are passing what remains of the station platform at Stillwater, once a busy junction with large numbers of coal wagons arriving and departing daily. The empty log wagons are waiting to be loaded with exotic pine logs, a new wealth being generated for the West Coast since the cessation of native forest logging. Turning east on the tight curve from the Stillwater Junction, the train starts its long uphill climb to Otira. The line runs past Lake Brunner, named after an early explorer in the West Coast, before passing through Moana, where it's pleasing to see the historic railway station has been restored. The daily Transalpine passenger train from Christchurch to Greymouth will soon be passing us as we wait in the loop line at Rotumanu. The Transalpine has grown in popularity to become the longest regular passenger train running in New Zealand. Steam locomotives regularly hauled trains this long over these tracks until rail travel began to decline in popularity in the mid-1960s. As the train charges up the grade at the crossing point of Aikens, we are treated to a stunning mountain backdrop of the likes that you would expect to see on a picture postcard. The gradient steepens and the engine begins to bark as it utilizes all its power on the final leg up to Otira. Once again, it's time to add diesel engines to the front of the train and shift the tank wagon to the front of the steam locomotive for the climb through the Otira Tunnel to Arthur's Pass. An empty westbound coal train descends the line from Arthur's Pass down a steep grade, with its tail end still on the steep hill. With regular servicing by the dedicated mainline team, the AB will no doubt continue to perform faultlessly for the rest of the trip. Back at Arthur's Pass, we once again play musical chairs with our train, putting everything back into the right order. Now reassembled for the final part of the journey back to Christchurch, 663 provides a classic picture against the grandeur of the Alpine Divide, before we bid farewell to this majestic locality. We reached the well-known Cass Bank that was regularly photographed by railway photographers during the steam era. This long curving grade allows us to see and hear steam power at its finest. The Transalpine train following us from Greymouth is catching up, and we need to wait in the crossing loop at Springfield to allow it to pass. Passengers take the opportunity to get something to eat and drink in what is one of the few refreshment rooms left in the New Zealand railway station. Travelling by steam train is not now done by necessity, but by choice. Travelling to get to a destination is not what the passengers on this train have come for. They have come for the joy of seeing and hearing a wonderfully restored locomotive, nearing 90 years of age, doing what it was built to do. The relaxation of leisurely watching the countryside passing by, the chance to meet new friends, and stopping to take memorable photographs in remote and scenic locations are just some of the delights we have all experienced. We have travelled the railway from the furthest point east to the furthest point west and back again, and now we are close to the end of our journey. As the sun sets slowly and the train nears its final destination, we have time to reflect and think towards the next time we will go westward bound.